On this episode of AV Week, taking a look at the latest in digital signage and whether or not 3D is coming down the pipeline for the segment, and what Facebook's crash means for the AV industry moving to the cloud. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 529, recorded Friday, October 8th, 2021. AV Conspiracy.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Extron, industry-leading technology backed by world-class support.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week. First and foremost, I'm going to go do closest to the farthest away because my buddy Erica Williams is here over in Kansas City that way. How are you, ma'am?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
I am well. Due north of me is a young man that I met a long time ago when we were both tech managers. His name is Mike Brandis. Welcome, sir.
A long time when we were both tech managers and young men. It's good to be on again, Tim. So thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Let's go due east. Mr. Frank Paticala has joined us. He's pulled himself away from the fine folks at Panasonic. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And a brand newbie, so please be nice to her, you three. Her name is Carmen Dominguez, and she is with Barco Due South down in Dallas Way. How are you, ma'am?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. So the first story here, technically, I could have grabbed any publication pretty much in the world. I grabbed the one from NPR, but knock yourself out. Just type in Facebook outage, and you'll find an article, all right? Bottom line here is Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram had a quote-unquote worldwide outage on Monday. The root cause was a faulty configuration change, and that there is quote-unquote no evidence that the user data was compromised as a result. Kind of somewhat full disclosure, I don't use Facebook a lot. I am on there. If you want to find me, that's fine. I use Instagram and WhatsApp. I did notice some outages. And the reason I bring this up is the cloud version, the cloud basis of this. During my day job at CTI, we're going down the road of looking at a couple different software solutions that are all cloud-based, meaning that they're on somebody else's server. Frank, I'm going to start with you on this. Not for anything, not for nothing, but Frank is a longtime drumbeat of IT is AV and AV is IT. Okay. What happens when this happens? What happens when the cloud goes down, Frank? What happens when we've put all of our eggs in the, AV as a service basket and somebody unplugs something?
Well, the first thing you do is you find humor in it, right? It's like, because I pity the poor techs who had to deal with this. My Twitter timeline was flooded with jokes. I loved it. I'm going to share one. It's if I say about networking, the one that always comes to mind is that I could tell you a UDP joke, but you wouldn't get it. But I could tell you a BGP joke, and you'll definitely get it, right? So BGP is one of those protocols used to configure these long-distance routes, and people say that's one of the causes behind this. Somebody misplaced a routing table, entered something incorrectly, and what happened is Facebook, for a few hours, did not exist anymore. There was no Facebook.com anywhere, right? So the relevance of having backup, and no matter what you do, and this is Facebook we're talking about, millions of users every minute. So the cloud going down is a reality of it, but that doesn't take away from the fact that this is where we're going. You like it or not, cloud services are here to stay. Outages are normal. It's just that they're more glorified now. I mean, you'd have routers going down too. You'd have switches going down too. You'd have your most trusted matrix routers going down. It's a part of electronics. Sometimes they go down, but cloud, the convenience that it offers to you is unmatched, and I don't think there's any question in it. Now, can we improve our processes? Can we make ourselves more competent to go through these things? Absolutely, but it's going to stay. I'm still on the AV's IT, this is here to stay bandwagon, never changing that.
All right. Mr. Brandis. Mike works for, actually, three of you guys work for manufacturers. Frank works for Panasonic. Mike works for QSC. QSC is certainly going down this road here. Frank makes a good point. This is where we're going, the convenience factor here. So how, as someone who works inside one of these companies that is going down this cloud road, how do you develop for that? How do you talk to customers about that? And how do you talk to customers that are kind of on two different spectrums here? You've got folks that are certainly in the camp of AV as IT, but you also have, let's just call them old curmudgeons, who will shake their fist at the cloud and say, not in my backyard. I need my physical switcher.
That's a great question. So first of all, thank God we're talking about this, because local equipment has never ever gone down in anyone's lifetime. So the cloud's unique in that aspect, right? So we're already off to a good start. The thing I would say there, and I'm speaking first of all as a guy who works for a company, not as the company. If I were to bet who's going to have a better uptime, is it going to be Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Azure, or is it going to be 200 physical servers in a data center somewhere in my property, in my building that's susceptible to power outages, things like that? I'm going to bet the farm on those other three companies, not mine. Now, for users, the experience is the same, right? Whether you have a physical piece of equipment in the room that goes down, maybe power supply breaks, something like that, you have downtime. Your downtime is in the days, hours, if you can go get another power supply, things like that. When you go to the cloud, this was a huge issue. They lost the BGP routing. They didn't exist. They weren't on their CNAME records were gone. And this was resolved in 2-3 hours, 4 hours, something like that, right? This wasn't ship me another piece of hardware via the RMA cycle next day air to resolve it. So, I'm a technology guy, an adopter. I think there's a lot more stability and there's a lot more opportunity and stuff that's not hosted on-prem. Obviously, you have the need for on-prem stuff. I don't know if I want to send my laptop feed to the cloud for processing to come back to my in-root distribution, right? That's silly. When latency is involved, the cloud's not the way to go. So there's always going to be that on-prem cloud solution, especially for signal management. But for data, I can guarantee you that your uptime is going to be greater using a hosted web service with redundant data centers across the world as opposed to the IBM server in your basement.
All right. Erica helps out the folks and works for Henderson Engineers. What happens when you're supporting and you're helping out and putting together and making sure that this presentation works or that highfalutin meeting happens and the cloud goes down? Is it, like Mike says, sure, gear has never gone down. Yes, we're all being sarcastic here because gear certainly will go down. So is it just because it's newer that we get freaked out, or at least guys like me get freaked out about the cloud, and it's just where we're headed, or where are we in the comfort level here of making sure that as we migrate to the cloud, everybody kind of comes along and comes along comfortably, I guess.
Well, I just want to start out by saying I don't think what happened to Facebook was an accident. Just saying, if you're into conspiracy theories, I don't think it was an accident. Just throwing that out there.
Tell me more.
Go on. Don't tell her more. Don't tell him more. No. No.
I'm listening.
It's just the timing.
It was Jack from Twitter. He got in there. Anyhow.
Yeah. It's just interesting timing. Just very interesting timing, convenient timing, if you ask me.
I kind of echo that too, because that becomes the bigger news,
damn,
right?
Now you have more adopters of this. Great.
You might have a point there.
Time out really quickly. The reason she's saying that, if you didn't catch that, right, the Facebook whistleblower had just been on 60 Minutes? Mm-hmm. 60 Minutes, and she was getting ready to testify before Congress. So, yeah.
Distraction.
You think they were just deleting?
Can't testify about what doesn't exist.
Exactly, yeah.
And their stocks dropped right before it all went down, too.
Although I will say this,
okay.
I don't think anybody disbelieves anything people say about Facebook at this point. It's like Facebook.
True.
Yeah. They probably did it. That's just the assumption.
So that's an interesting question, and I'm glad you asked. The unique thing about my environment is not only do we now have, we're a Zoom shop completely, so we've got meetings and phone. It's all in the cloud. It's all cloud-based. In the architecture, engineering, construction world, you also have things like BIM 360 and AutoCAD and Revit starting to move things to the cloud. You've got other products that people use for, punch lists and everything. It's all in the cloud. So there's a lot going on. And I think it helps, especially in managing users' expectations, that it's already kind of been around a little bit. People have already had a little bit of a taste of what happens when something goes down, and they know what to expect. Obviously, with newer things, and especially with conference rooms, I think it just all depends. If you've got a huge presentation where you're trying to win a new client and everything breaks down, yeah, everybody's going to freak out. But if it's your weekly scheduling meeting, everybody's not going to necessarily freak out. They'll understand. Mike said a really good thing about having redundancy, and redundancy absolutely in your data centers, but also redundancy in your backup plan. You can never put all your eggs in one basket with just Zoom. We also have Teams. We also have WebEx. We have backup plans. So worst case scenario, we need to switch it, but it's likely not all of those are ever going to go down at the same time, right? So, making sure that you have redundancy across all kinds of levels is super important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Carmen, you'll have the last word on this one. Wrap us up. As you're talking with clients, and whether that is folks that are higher education or corporate, as we kind of move to the cloud, how are you helping? How is companies like Marco and like QSC and Panasonic helping the industry get to the cloud safely? Right, but also making sure that we do so with a comfort level that we have, with our gear that we can see and touch and feel.
Sure. I think, Erica and Mike kind of hit the nail on the head earlier, kind of stole a little bit of my thunder, but I think a lot of it is going to come down to making sure that proper planning is being taken into account, that your software SaaS service is actually built to have redundancy in there, and that there's multiple areas that you can kind of segment so things don't get bogged down. But most importantly, having a plan B internally as an organization. You can't, like Erica said, put all your eggs in one basket and expect to be able to continue business as usual if there should be a time that the network goes down or the cloud service goes down. Here internally, we also have many different softwares that we use, and we use Teams on a day-to-day basis. But we also have other platforms that we use so that we can continue, conducting day-to-day business activities. So I think that's important, redundancy and having a plan B internally to make sure that communication and business continues.
All right, absolutely. And I will agree on having the redundant cloud-based video conferencing systems. I also have my own opinions about which ones you should, and you can catch me at Infocom if you want to know which ones those are. All right, second story comes to us from our friends over at AV Magazine. Quick note, actually, about that. Knock on wood, and as long as I'm clear to go, I'm heading over to London. Mr. Netto and I, Mr. Chris Netto from AV and the AM fame, are going to be hosting the AV Awards live stream again. It is happening the 5th of November. And no, I'm not wearing a Guy Fawkes mask, but we'll be heading over there. And he and I actually are doing an event with his employer, Midwich, at their Experience Innovation Center, at their Innovation House, on the 4th of November. And by the time this post, you should be able to register for that, so check that out. AV Magazine, LG, quote-unquote, launches the first 3D LE content in Times Square. It is interesting. It's one of these displays that are on a corner of a building. Over the last year, they have kind of evolved their Times Square presence. LG is not a big player in Times Square. If you're familiar with, who is not familiar with Times Square, right? But if you're familiar with the players that are in that space, there are actually a couple of augmented reality apps that you can download, and you take your phone and you put it up to the screen. It'll tell you the manufacturer, it'll tell you the owner of it, and a lot of the content that are on it. LG has not been a huge player in this. But Mike, I'm going to start with you on this. Over the last couple of years, we've watched digital signage evolve. I think that you've been on a show with Emil Vandekoevering from Socialer before. Matter of fact, I think you two were on the 9 together from SCN, if I'm not mistaken. But when we look at digital signage and we look at kind of that environment, whether that is interactivity, whether that is the ability to insert yourself into certain digital signage, we start getting beyond the AV part and more the creative part. Where do we see digital signage going? Where do we see it heading? Is 3D, and God help me, I do not like 3D. I'll be the first to admit it. I hope that's not the next iteration. But where do we see this space going?
Like anything else, the technology is only as good as what you pump into it. Projection screens in meeting rooms are useless until you plug a computer into them and you can view your incredibly well-crafted spreadsheet. Digital signage is no different. First of all, I think digital signage has exploded over the past 5-10 years, right? You walk down the digital signage booth in any AV trade show, and it's everything from little small strips that you put at the gas station to let people know that you can get 2 Hershey bars for 99 cents to this LG thing, right? The content drives the large experience for sure. These 3D signs are, you see them on LinkedIn, Twitter. I mean, it's impressive what they do. But then you talk to rein it back in a little bit more into the down to earth stuff, and you talk to a casino. And a casino, you think about AV and audio by the acre. You've got video distribution and things like that. And you talk to them about their digital signage solution, and their IT guy is going to tell you, "Oh, we just make sure everything's connected to the network. We have a content agency that does that. Our ad agency generates our digital signage content." It's not the technology people. It was the technology people when I worked at a university. I took someone else's PowerPoint and I turned that into digital signage. Now that content's being generated. That's in a whole industry. You hire your madman, ad firm, and they do your TV ads. They do your radio spots. They do your print ads. But you know what? They're also doing your in-house digital signage. Companies that are going to make a huge investment in digital signage aren't going to depend on a retail entity making a large investment in digital signage manager. It's not going to ask the regional sales manager for Altoona, Pennsylvania to come up with super cool looking graphics, right? They're going to pay a lot of money for that. My thought there is that the content is way more important than the distribution mechanism.
All right. Erica, in the heart of corporate, where do you see digital signage? We've seen it kind of migrate, as Mike says, into higher education, into corporate. Certainly, there is room for there, depending on which manufacturer you're looking at. Some of them are also converting unused conference rooms into digital signage platforms and canvases. Where do you see signage going from here?
Yeah, digital signage is something that I personally struggle with. I guess I just have bad experiences with it. I think that there can be some value. I agree with Mike that it comes down to the content. You can spend honestly hundreds of thousands of dollars on digital signage solutions, even in a corporate environment, and it's only as good as the people who have the time to put into that. So it's a major investment, and it's the kind of investment that you need to have a real intention for. What is your intention? And when I think about the corporate world, I think a lot about, what we've been hearing at these virtual conferences is what is the office space going to look like when people come back? And it's more of creating an experience. It's being able to bring clients there to see and feel your brand, and less about, the actual employees coming for collaboration. It'll be more of a selling point. From what the people are saying. I don't completely disagree. The nice thing about some of these services like Zoom rooms and team rooms and everything else like that is that they have the digital signage built in. So that's nice. You're getting that already. And, it's you just got to have a plan, honestly. And I think that for the companies that are very focused on their brand and their brand being part of their client experience, it's going to be huge and really take off.
Yeah, absolutely. Frank works for Panasonic, so certainly in that space, but also I mentioned before he came by way of Diversified. So Diversified's got a huge digital signage segment. Talk for a second about kind of both those sides of your world in the last couple of years, and kind of where you see signage.
I think the last couple of years, although we see all the negatives and the challenges associated with the pandemic, the biggest thing as a technology lover that I saw happening was the breaking down of verticals, right? Previously, you'd have very distinct verticals. This is a house of worship product. This is a digital signage product. This is a corporate product, right? And in a sense, the supply chain issues and the stuff that we deal with every day has contributed to people looking outside the box to solve problems and realize that, hey, I can use this for this, right? So I think that from a technology perspective, the future of digital signage is just awesome, right? People value their experiences more. It's not just about the wow factor. It became functional over the last 2 years. Digital signage is not just about looking at it. You have your interactive menus. You have your, your gesture operated systems, and digital signage is everywhere. And it's no more something that is just something that the marketing department pushes out. So in a sense, to allude to Mike and Erica's point, though content has always been king, I think us technology folks are slowly clawing back and saying, yes, we get it, content needs to be there, but this technology has some applications that you need to be aware of, right? And to bring it all into a full circle, our earlier conversation of the cloud is particularly important in digital signage as well right now, right? Because content is streamed live. It's a cloud-based platform. The deployments are different. Things are changing. So there's a lot of future in digital signage and how it's going to be seen on a day-to-day basis. Personal side note from me, I love that there's so much of incentive to integrate AI into digital signage, to see how, what's the size of the crowd in front of the screen. Let's change content based on that. Let's look at it. Again, it raises concerns about privacy and all the other questions associated with AI, but at the same time, looking at it from a pure technology perspective, it's just great. What's happened in the last 2 years, I think digital signage has really changed their involvement. I don't think it's just about billboards and advertising or that wow factor anymore. Digital signage is a part of everything at this point. So it's good.
Yeah. I want to kind of add an aside to that. So I don't know if anybody else heard about this, but in iOS 14, Apple released a new feature called private Wi-Fi network or private network. So basically, if you have it turned on, your MAC address is constantly changing on your iPhone. So what they've realized that stores and other places were doing is they were tracking your MAC address and being able to track your behaviors, which plays honestly directly into this digital signage thing. But now they've got it so you can actually turn it off. So your MAC address isn't switching. But for the people who don't turn it off, like how is that going to affect the digital signage game and being able to target those ads? Because it might be the same person coming in 3 days a week, but their MAC address isn't the same, so you're not able to work off that. So just want to throw that out there a little.
That is actually very interesting, and I will disagree with Frank a little bit. I agree with what you're saying. I understand what you're saying about the technology. As a creative, I would go back there and say, the technology is wonderful, but it's a canvas, right? And that's just my 2 cents on that. Carmen, we'll wrap up with you. Barco certainly is in this space. I don't think you can get away from Barco in this space. But one of the things that Frank brought up is AI. I've been fascinated, and some people go down the road of facial recognition. I am more of the attitude of demographic recognition, right? So the three of us walking down the street, me and Frank walking down with Carmen, it notices that there's 2 guys and a woman, right? And then gives us content. Accordingly. There are some issues with that in general. I'm not going to get into that, but when you look at it, both from your perspective as Carmen, but also from Barco's perspective when it comes to digital signage, where do you guys see the segment going for the next year or so?
I think it's only going to continue to grow. I think a lot of people who are out there as consumers, just generally on a personal level, I tend to buy visually, or I tend to learn visually. And I think, it's just going to continue on the upwards path. And as far as for organizations, and I know that content that is being used is obviously very important on what you're using out there, but also other ways that organizations are increasing their ROI is the fact that because it is digital, there's so many different types of messages that you can be using that same digital sign for in different use cases and applications in higher education and in corporate universities. And I think the platform's just going to continue developing, and higher quality solutions are going to continue to hit, the market. As you know, it's ever changing, and it seems like every 6 months or so, we're getting a new type of technology that is out there and available. And I think it's just going to keep going uphill.
No, absolutely. All right, guys. As we wrap up here, I do want to mention one thing. DSC, Digital Signage Expo, since we're talking about digital signage, is actually coming back. Yes, AVNation did file for bankruptcy and kind of folded, but somebody else came along and grabbed it. It's a company called QuestX who purchased that show and a couple others. And they are putting it on March 21st through the 23rd in Vegas, Las Vegas Convention Center. So if you've been to Infocom or NAB or CES, that same building, typically, in the last couple of years, they were in the South Hall. So you check out their website, and I'll have Mitchell put a link to DSC's website so you can check that out. So not quite sure yet whether or not we're heading over there. We're still putting together our calendar for 2022, and it's already filling up. Let me just put it that way. All right. Thank you guys so much. That's going to do it for us. Frank Patakala, good to see you, buddy. How do people connect with you or Panasonic?
Panasonic is panasonic.com. And Frank Patakala is Frank Patakala on Twitter and LinkedIn. Look me up. I tweet a lot. That's me.
All right. Mr. Brandis, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. How do people connect with you or QSC?
Well, you can find QSC online on the internet. We have an internet web presence. It is qsc.com. So we are a business, hence the .com designator there. You can find me on Twitter. I am Mike Brandis AV. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am Mike Brandis, but my LinkedIn URL is Mike Brandis AV to further complicate things. And I don't know why you'd want to find me on either, but if you do, I tweet pictures of my dogs and musings as I use other people's software and sometimes write my own.
And soccer and beer,
A lot more soccer on other accounts than the Mike Brandis AV account.
All right. Erica Williams, thank you, ma'am. Good to see you, as always. How do people connect with you or Henderson Engineers?
You can check us out at hendersonengineers.com. We've got a lot of great projects going on and some really cool job postings, so check it out. You can find me on LinkedIn under Erica Williams. There's a lot of me, but just look for the one on AV. And you can also find me on Twitter at HaircutFW. It's October, so forewarning, you will get lots of rants about horror movies for the next couple weeks.
All right. Carmen, thank you, ma'am. How do people connect with you or Barco?
Absolutely. So you can find us on the web, barco.com, specifically the group that I'm a part of, which is the Learning Experiences team. It's under the Teaching and Training tab on Barco's main website. And then you can also follow us on LinkedIn. Barco Teaching and Training also has our own segment outside of the big Barco organization. And certainly you can find me as well on LinkedIn under Carmen Dominguez, or former last name Olivares, recently got married. So transitioned there online. So definitely find me on LinkedIn as well.
All right, very good. Congratulations on getting married. Erica also is a relatively newlywed, so both of y'all, young kids, dadgummit. All right. For me, for Tim Albright, do not, under any circumstances, follow me on the Twitters. I mentioned the fact that it is October. Here in St. Louis, the Cardinals are no longer playing, so thank God. That means it is football season officially. So go Bears. And it's also hockey season, so go Blues. That's what you'll get from me. Not even as much as Brandis. So
a lot of heartache.
I know. But, what are you going to do? But go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others, including all of our coverage of Infocom 2021. We are headed to Orlando the 27th through the 29th of October. You can check out a couple of different things we've got going on. We do have a number of get-togethers. We are doing the tweet up from 4 to 6 o'clock on Wednesday, the 27th of October. It is in W304, I think, but if you go to AVNation.tv and you go to the Infocom page, you'll find that. Just register for that, tell us you're coming so we can buy enough beer or whatever, and let us know you're coming. I mentioned my day job. I'm head of marketing for CTI out of St. Louis. We have a booth, 2923 is where you'll find that. And also AVNation Studio is up on the 3rd floor and down the hall. You can check that out as well. So come out, and if you're going to Orlando, come out and see us and hang out. We've got a party every single night, Tuesday through Thursday. So you can hang out with us and get just, there's not a whole lot of things going on. So, there's I'm not saying that we're the only game in town, but we're one of the few parties you can go hang out, and it's outdoors. So social distance and all that jazz. So all that and more at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week. It's also October, so that means the Blues start playing in about 2 weeks. All right.
This is true, and the Cardinals are in the playoffs.
No, they're not.
Oh, no, not yet, but they will be.
No, they lost.
Did they lose the game the other day?
They lost Wednesday, so they're not anymore.
That's why my wife hasn't been talking to me.
Yeah.
Mitch, we need to add those side effects of this, the sound effects.
Wah, wah, wah.
I'm going to just cut that all out so I don't end up divorced.